Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Major breaking news this hour: Russia has officially sent a squadron of MiG-29 fighter jets to Iran. And President Vladimir Putin has issued a direct warning to Israel. We'll shoot down your jets if you strike. This marks one of the most serious escalations in the Middle East since the Syrian conflict began. The move signals a deepening military alliance between Moscow and Tehran, and it's already causing concern across Western and Israeli defense circles. According to multiple defense reports, Russian transport aircraft landed in Iran under heavy security late last night, carrying several MiG-29 SMD fighters and technical support teams. The aircraft are believed to have been transferred to an Iranian airbase in the central province of Isfahan, where Russian and Iranian technicians are already working to make them operational. The MiG-29 SMT is an upgraded fourth-generation fighter with advanced radar, electronic countermeasures, and precision-guided weapons capability. This transfer dramatically strengthens Iran's air power. For decades, Iran's air force has relied on aging U.S.-built F-14s and F-4s from before the 1979 revolution, along with a small number of locally upgraded MiGs. By acquiring these modernized jets directly from Russia, Iran is now stepping into a new phase of regional deterrence. The timing of the delivery is significant. Over the past few weeks, Israel has increased its air operations over Syria and Lebanon, targeting Iranian supply routes and weapons depots. These strikes have angered Tehran, which has repeatedly vowed to respond. The arrival of Russian jets effectively places a new layer of protection over Iranian assets. In simple terms, any Israeli operation against Iran or its allies could now risk direct confrontation with Russian light aircraft or potentially even Russian personnel. Moscow's warning to Israel came soon after the jets landed. Russian officials stated that any Israeli attack on Iranian or Syrian territory that threatens Russian assets or their allies could be met with a measured military response. The Kremlin's language was unusually firm, suggesting that Moscow is ready to enforce a red line in the region. For Israel, this is a major strategic complication. The Israeli Air Force has operated for years with relative freedom across the Middle East. Its F-15 and F-35 fleets have conducted hundreds of precision strikes in Syria, Lebanon, and even near Tehran, often without interference. But this new Russian stance challenges that dominance directly. Israeli pilots could now face advanced radar tracking, interception attempts, and limited operational freedom near Iranian airspace. Israeli defense officials have reportedly convened an emergency meeting with senior military commanders and the Prime Minister's office. The meeting focused on assessing whether these Russian aircraft are purely symbolic, or whether they represent a practical threat to Israeli operations. Intelligence sources believe that Russian crews may remain in Iran to train local pilots, integrate radar systems, and assist with mission planning. If true, that would make any Israeli strike inside Iran potentially risk direct engagement with Russian forces, a scenario Israel has always sought to avoid. The United States has also reacted cautiously. Pentagon officials described the transfer as a destabilizing move, warning that it could increase the likelihood of miscalculation in an already volatile region. Washington is now monitoring whether Russia intends to deploy additional aircraft or air defense systems to Iran, such as the S-400 or S-300 batteries that already protect key Russian bases in Syria. This development comes amid growing coordination between Russia and Iran over defense and energy cooperation. Over the past year, Iran has supplied Russia with Shahd-series drones used extensively in Ukraine. In exchange, Russia has promised advanced aircraft, satellite technology, and economic support to help Tehran bypass Western sanctions. What we are now seeing is that partnership becoming visible in military form, not just drones or trade, but frontline fighter jets. The message from Moscow is clear. Russia is expanding its presence beyond Europe and Ukraine, asserting itself in the Middle East once again. By arming Iran, the Kremlin is challenging both Western and Israeli influence in a region already stretched by multiple conflicts. It's also using Iran as a strategic lever, showing Washington that pressure in Eastern Europe can be countered by instability in the Middle East. Defense analysts say this marks the most significant Russian military deployment to Iran since the Cold War. The MiG-29 SMTs, while not stealth fighters, are highly capable multi-role aircraft. They can carry modern R-77 air-to-air missiles, precision bombs, and have been upgraded with modern radar and cockpit systems. In skilled hands, they could pose a real threat to older or unescorted aircraft. For Iran, these jets are more than weapons, they're a symbol of legitimacy and partnership. Tehran has faced years of sanctions and isolation from the West. The arrival of Russian aircraft underlines that it is no longer completely cut off from advanced military technology. Iranian state media has already called the delivery a milestone in defense cooperation, and has praised Moscow for supporting stability in the region. Meanwhile, Israel's intelligence community is watching closely. Officials fear that with Russian and Iranian radar networks now possibly linked, Israel's long-held advantage in early warning and surprise attacks could be compromised. The possibility that Russian radar systems in Syria could now share data with Iranian airbases has raised new concerns about operational secrecy. Inside Moscow, this move also serves a domestic political purpose. With the war in Ukraine ongoing and relations with NATO at historic lows, Putin is seeking to project strength abroad. By positioning Russia as a defender of Iran against Israel, and by extension against Western allies, he reinforces his image as a global power player. It's a message to both his own people and the international community. Russia is not isolated, it is expanding its alliances. The regional response, however, is mixed. Arab states such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, which have recently normalized ties with Israel, are watching with unease. They have sought balanced relations with both Russia and the West, but the presence of Russian jets in Iran could tilt that balance. There are concerns that this could embolden Iran's regional proxies, including Hezbollah in Lebanon and Houthi forces in Yemen. Military experts also point out that the MiG-29s could be used not only for defense but for escorting or supporting Iranian drone operations. If paired with Russian surveillance aircraft or satellite guidance, Iran could potentially launch more coordinated air and drone campaigns in the region. This would make it harder for Israel or Western forces to counter them effectively. In Washington, the Biden administration is expected to discuss the situation with NATO allies and Israel in the coming days. There is speculation that additional sanctions may be placed on Russian defense industries or Iranian entities involved in the transfer. However, Western officials privately admit that diplomatic tools may be limited. Moscow and Tehran have already shown they are willing to absorb sanctions in exchange for strategic gains. The situation in Syria also adds another layer of risk. Russian forces are still stationed there, operating air defense systems and maintaining control over key air corridors. If Russian allied jets begin flying from Iran and Israeli aircraft continue striking Iranian-linked targets in Syria, the airspace could become dangerously crowded. One miscalculation could lead to a direct clash between Russian and Israeli pilots. Regional analysts believe this is exactly the leverage Moscow wants. By inserting itself between Israel and Iran, Russia becomes a central player that everyone has to deal with. Whether through deconfliction hotlines or backchannel diplomacy, Moscow now has another card to play in its global strategy. Inside Israel, the response remains cautious but firm. Senior defense officials have stated that Israel retains the right to defend itself anywhere, anytime. However, they also acknowledge that this new Russian posture complicates operational planning. The Israeli Air Force may now rely more heavily on stealth platforms like the F-35, IADIR, and enhance its electronic warfare and cyber capabilities to maintain its advantage. There's also the question of deterrence. By warning Israel so publicly, Russia risks triggering the opposite effect, pushing Israel to act sooner rather than later, before Iran's air defenses and Russian assistance become fully integrated. If Israel believes its window to act is closing, the temptation to strike preemptively could increase. That's a scenario no one in the region wants, but one that cannot be ruled out. For Iran, the political victory is immediate. The arrival of Russian aircraft gives it the appearance of a nation supported by a superpower. State media has already begun portraying this as a counterbalance to the U.S. presence in the Gulf and Israel's growing alignment with Arab states. It strengthens Iran's position in any future nuclear negotiations, making it harder for Western powers to pressure Tehran without risking confrontation with Moscow. In the broader geopolitical picture, this move cements Russia's role as a disruptor. It now has military leverage in Eastern Europe through Ukraine, in the Arctic through naval power, and in the Middle East through Iran and Syria. Each of these positions gives Moscow the ability to challenge Western interests on multiple fronts simultaneously. As tensions rise, attention will turn to the next steps. Will Israel risk testing Russia's warning? Will Moscow send more equipment, such as Su-35s or air defense systems, to solidify its presence in Iran? And how will the United States respond without escalating into direct confrontation? For now, the situation remains tense but stable. No official air patrols or interceptions have been reported, but military watchers say that could change at any moment. The skies over the Persian Gulf and Syria are now more crowded, and the margin for error has never been smaller. One thing is clear: the transfer of MiG-29 from Russia to Iran is not just a weapons deal. It's a signal of intent. Moscow is challenging the balance of power in the Middle East and drawing a line that Israel cannot easily ignore. Whether that line holds or breaks will determine the region's stability for years to come. This is a developing story. We'll continue to monitor all updates as they come in. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the latest analysis. Thanks for watching. Stay informed, stay focused, and we'll see you in the next report.